Hello all, welcome to this value-added course on Python programming for beginners. As part of week 10, we are going to cover the module 14 about exceptions. So, in this video, we will discuss about error and exception handling. As part of this, uh, we are going to cover the content, introduction to errors and exceptions, handling exceptions, multiple except blocks, multiple exceptions in a single block, except block without exception, and finally, else clause. Coming to the introduction to errors and exceptions, normally the programs what we write may behave abnormally or unexpectedly because of some errors and or are exceptions. The two most common types of errors that we very often encounter are syntax errors and logic errors. While the logic errors occur due to the poor understanding of problem and its solution, syntax errors, on the other hand, arises due to poor understanding of the programming language. However, such errors can be detected by exhaustive debugging and testing of procedures. But so many times we come across some peculiar problems which are often categorized as exceptions. These exceptions are runtime anomalies or unusual conditions such as divide by zero, accessing arrays out of its bounds, and running out of memory, or disk flow, overflow, and underflow. These are all the examples or unusual conditions that are occur due to runtime that a program may encounter during its execution. Like errors, exceptions can also be categorized as synchronous exceptions and asynchronous exceptions. While synchronous exceptions like divide by zero, array index out of bounds can be controlled by the program, whereas asynchronous exceptions like interrupt from the keyboard, hardware malfunction, or disk function, on the other hand, are caused by the events that are beyond the control of the program. So we will see some examples for these errors. So syntax errors. So syntax errors occur when we violate the rules of Python programming language, and they are the most common kind of error that we get while learning a new language. For example, consider the below lines of code, and what we have given is x equal to 0, and if x equal to 0, print x. So this is the syntax error, and we can say simply invalid syntax. So what is the syntax we have to write here? If x equal to 0 colon, next line we have to write the print x. But in the same line, if we write print x, so simply it will displace the invalid syntax. Next, logic error. Logic error specifies all those type of errors in which the program executes but gives incorrect results. These type of logic errors will occur due to wrong algorithm or logic to solve a particular program. In some cases, logic errors may lead to divide by zero or accessing an item in a list where the index of the item is outside the bounds of the list. In this case, the logic error leads to a runtime error that causes the program to terminate suddenly. These type of runtime errors are known as exceptions. Now coming to exceptions, even if a statement is syntactically correct, it may still cause an error when executed. Such errors that occur at runtime are known as exceptions. An exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program and disrupts the normal flow of the program's instructions. When a program encounters a situation which it cannot deal with, it raises an exception. Therefore, we can say that an exception is a Python object which will represent that error. When program raises an exception, it must be handle the exception or the program will be immediately terminated. We can handle exceptions in our programs to end it gracefully. Otherwise, if the exceptions that are not handled by programs, then error messages are generated. So this is examples for the exception. Suppose if you give 5 divided by 0. So now, so simply it will display an error. So that is 0 division error. So division by 0. The exception here is division by 0. And if we give VAR plus 5, so and VAR we have not defined previously. So that's why what it will display is name error. So there is name where is not defined. So did you mean where's? So this is the system keyword. So which is asked whether it is where's and Python plus 3.10. So here Python is represented in single quotes. That means we are saying that it is a string and 3.10 is the float value. So that's why simply it will display type error. So that is can only concatenate string, not float to string. Now coming to the handling exceptions. We can handle exceptions in our program using try block and except block. A critical operation which can raise exception is placed inside the try block and the code that handles the exception is written in the except block. So this is the syntax for try except block. And how can we write it? Try. We have to give the statements in the try block and the except, there is the exception name and what are the statements. So how we can handle the exception, we can write in the except block. So this is the one example. The try statement works as follows. So here what is the first step is, first the try block is executed. So whatever we have written between the try and except keywords, that will be executed first. And step 2, in step 2 we have first one, A, if no exception occurs, the except block is skipped. In the try statements, if did not find exception, so simply the except block is skipped. And if an exception occurs during the execution of any statement in the try block, then the first one is the rest of the statements in the try block are skipped. So remaining try block statements are skipped. And if the exception type matches the exception named after the except keyword, the except block is executed. So now, so here in exception block, we can write any number of interrupts. Now, the whatever the interrupt that is found in the try block, then it will execute that particular exception block, and then execution continues after try statement. If an exception occurs which does not match the exception named in the except block, then it is passed on to the outer type block in case of nested try blocks. If no exception handler is found in the program, then it is an unhandled exception and the program is terminated with an error message. This is the case 3. So here exception rise, and if it is yes, handler found. So if handler found as yes, then program is control transfer is to handler. And if the first statement only exception rise or no, program executes normally. And if the handler is not found the exception rise, then the program is terminated and an error message is displayed. Now we will see some examples. So here the first one is program to handle the divide by 0 exception. So here we are handling the divide by 0 exception. So first we are taking a variable number and we are taking input, enter the numerator and denominator and try. So what we are going to try? Quotient. So quotient equal to number by denom and print quotient equal to quotient value, then accept. So now we are trying this, trying to find the division by 0 error and accept division 0 error, 0 division error. Print denominator cannot be 0. So simply we are printing our message. Denominator cannot be 0. So normally we cannot give this except block. So simply displays the error division by 0 error. And this is the output. So we will get two types of output. If the numerator is 20 and denominator is 10, so simply it will execute only try block. It does not go for executing the except block. So simply it will display the quotient 2.0. And in the second example, the numerator is 30 and the denominator is 0. So here simply it finds the division by 0 error and it will go for checking the except block. In except block already we have written 0 division error. So simply it will display the denominator cannot be 0. Now multiple except blocks. So for every try block compulsory we have to write the except block, and also we can write multiple except blocks for a single try block. Python allows us to have multiple except blocks for a single try block. The block which matches with the exception generated will be executed. A try block can be associated with more than one except block to specify handlers for different exceptions. However, only one handler will be executed. Exception handlers only handle exceptions that occur in the corresponding try block. We can write our own programs that handle the selected exceptions. So this is the syntax for specifying multiple except blocks. For a single try block can be given as try. So here we can give the operations that are to be done in the block and accept exception 1. So if there is exception 1, then execute this block, and accept exception 2. If there is exception 2, then execute this block. Likewise, we can write multiple except blocks. Then finally last else block we have. Else, if there is no exception, then it will execute this else block. So this is the example program for multiple except blocks. So try num equal to int, input enter the number, then print num power 2, num power 2, except keyboard interrupt. So here we are giving the print value. You should have entered a command from the keyboard and program terminating. And the second except block what we are going to give is value error. Please check before you enter, and program is terminating. And finally we are going to print I. Now this is the outputs. So now enter the number. So enter the number 10. So here we have given input 10 and 100 it is going to print. So 10 power 2, and it does not found any error. So simply it will print the last statement by. But whenever we execute the same program, enter the number and we have given high. So here high is value error. So that is please check before you enter, and program terminating, and it is also printing by. And enter the number, the third output ABC, and here also it will print the value error because it needs integer, but we have given string. And the final one, enter the number. So here we are pressing the Control C command. Control C command. So simply it will display the output keyboard input error. So you should have entered a command from keyboard and program terminating, and it is going to execute the last statement by. Now, how can we write multiple exceptions in a single block? So till now we have written for each exception we have written a except block. Now we can combine multiple exceptions in a single block. So that is an except class may name multiple exceptions as a parenthesized tuple as shown in the program given below. So whatever exception is raised out of the three exceptions specified, the same except block will be executed. So now the same program previously what we are going to do is we are handling all exceptions in a single except block. So try and num equal to int input, enter the number and print num power 2. Now except we are writing three exceptions here itself. Keyboard interrupt, value error, type error, and we are going to print. Please check before you enter, program terminating and print y. So now whatever input we have given, suppose we have given input number 10 and it is correct. So only it will execute the try block and the last print statement. It never executes the except block until there is an exception. Now we are giving input ABC and simply it will execute value error and it is going to execute the except block. So please check before you enter, program terminating. And if you give any command also, keyboard interrupt error, so simply it will also print the same same exception class. And except block without exception, we can even specify an except block without mentioning any exception. So simply we will give except colon. This type of except block, if present, should be the last one that can serve as a wild card. So now whenever the multiple except blocks are present, we have to write the last one. But use it with extreme caution since it may mask a real programming error. In large software programs, many times it is difficult to anticipate all types of possible exceptional conditions. Therefore, the programmer may not be able to write a different handler for every individual type of exception. In such situations, a better idea is to write a handler that would catch all type of exceptions. So this is the syntax to define a handler that would catch every possible exceptions from the try block is. So try, we can write the options in the try block, except if there is any exception, then execute this block. Else, if there is no exception, then execute this block. Now this is the program which will demonstrate the use of except block. So here see here try f1 equal to we are opening a file file1.txt with read mode. String 1 equal to f1 dot read lines print str1 except IO error print error occurred during input program terminated and except value error print could not convert data into an integer and except print unexpected error program terminating. Now output. So by including f1 equal to open file.txt r. So welcome to course object oriented programming using Python. By excluding, so we are not writing this statement. So here by excluding f1 open file.txt r. So simply it will displace the except block, that is unexpected error and program terminating. Now the last topic in this video is the else clause. The try except block can optionally have an else clause, which when present must follow all except blocks. The statements in the else block is executed only if the try clause does not raise an exception. So this is the program to demonstrate the else block. Try f1 equal to open file.txt and we have not mentioned mode here. str1 equal to f1 dot readline print str1 except IO error except print error occurred program terminated else print program terminated successfully. And whenever we executed by including f1 equal to open file1.txt, so simply it will displace welcome to the course program terminated successfully. So now the else clause. So no exception was found, and after that the else clause will be executed. The program terminated successfully. Thank you all for listening this video. Happy learning.